It may be argued It may be argued that since Krishna was visible to everyone when he was present on this earth, then how can it be said that he is not manifest to everyone? But actually, he was not manifest to everyone. When Krishna was present, there were only a few people who could understand him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the assembly of Kurus, when Shishupal spoke against Krishna's being elected president of the assembly, Bhishma supported him and proclaimed him to be the Supreme God. Similarly, the Pandavas and a few others knew that he was the supreme, but not everyone. He was not revealed to the non-devotees and the common man. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that, but for his pure devotees, all men consider him to be like themselves. He was manifest only to his devotees as the reservoir of all pleasure, but to others, to unintelligent non-devotees, he was covered by his internal potency.
Should we read the next paragraph annotation, or should we?
We can discuss on this, Maharaj.
Okay. Okay, we got the first paragraph. And it's true that when Krishna was personally present, one of the things that comes up is that Krishna is not here personally speaking the Bhagavad Gita to us, but the sound vibration is actually eternal, as is Krishna eternal. So the fact Prabhupada brings this up, that because it's done in disciplic succession, that the full intent of the Bhagavad Gita is left intact. And here it's described also that many people, including Shishupal and others, did not believe that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's a certain qualification that goes along with receiving that understanding, and even in Krishna's personal presence, it's not enough. The bhakti has to be there. The bhakti seed has to be there. So any what do we call them? Takeaways, reflections, or thoughts on this first paragraph and the verse? Probably again, I mean, Krishna even sometimes probably will speak very heavy, like fools, rascals, mudhas, and even Krishna here. I'm never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. Those people who feel they can actually understand. The father would sometimes say, understand the taste of honey by licking the outside of the jar. You cannot, you have to open the jar and you have to put your spoon in. I think I mentioned Sunday, put the spoon in and taste it, or you put your finger in and taste it. You can't taste the honey by licking the outside of the jar. So different material or different philosophical speculations or calculations or whatever they may be, you can never understand the true nature of Krishna until we actually dive into the Bhakti tradition. Not that there's not Bhakti tradition in other traditions. Bhakti tradition is there, Christianity and other what would you say, different religious traditions, that Bhakti or that devotion is manifest. So some thoughts from the esteemed group for this. We're on text 25 for those who just came in on the chapter 7.
Maharaj, towards the paragraph, Prabhupada says, therefore in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that, but for his pure devotees, all men consider him to be like themselves. He was manifest only to his devotees and the reservoirs of all pleasure. But to others, the unintelligent non-devotees, he was covered by his internal potency. So Prabhupada is speaking about two sets of people. In one sense, he's talking about the pure devotees, and in another sense, he's talking about non-devotees.
Yeah.
So as a practicing devotee, how do we try to understand Krishna?
Oh, that's through the process of disciplic succession. That's through the sadhana. In other words, it's just like for practicing mathematicians, when you're in the primary school, you do primary school work, and you slowly graduate up, until you get a grip of mathematics, and then you're allowed to enter into higher and higher and higher. And so in the same way, one of the words I read the other day was surira, like body, We have a Sridhara sadhana, something, in other words, we have this body, the material body, which allows us to perform sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti means practice. It's kind of like we do everything in relationship to Krishna. In today's lecture during my lunch, probably was explaining that very, very clearly. He said it was just saying that, without Krishna, nothing, Krishna is actually everything. And it just takes a while to figure it out. When you go back, you can come to the point of understanding Krishna is everything. But to answer your question, it's like Krishna is not revealed to the non-devotees because it's just like the level of intimacy that we have with each other will show us how much we're ready to give ourselves to that person. If we don't know somebody very well, we're not, that level of trust or comfort is not going to be there. And Krishna is purchased by bhakti, so he holds that back. And this is the first chapter for the bhakti chapter. So you said here that therefore the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that, but for his pure devotees, all men consider them to be like themselves. In other words, they see Krishna in a material way. They see him, as we ever think it was, I'm giving a class on Guru Bhakti Sunday now, and I'm going to get mixed up on which class I said which thing. But I do believe we were talking about it last week, where because we are used to a material body being limited. Our material bodies are very, very limited by nature. But Krishna's body is not material. Krishna's body is spiritual. Although he's unborn, still he appears in his original transcendental form, the transcendental form of Krishna, where he appears as he is within this world. And so the example Prabhupada gave today is that if you buy a coat, the coat has arms and it has hands and it has, or a pair of pants has legs and gloves have fingers. So because it's cut according to the body. And so in the same way, we're made in the same image as God's personal form. So when we're in the illusion, when we're covered by this material body and we think that this is what I'm like, and we project that same understanding onto Krishna and try to limit his body. So we see them like we would see ourselves, like I would see you as a limited person, as a person that has this quality or that quality. But Krishna is an unlimited person that has all the qualities, all the opulences, Bhagavan that's there. And so he is not manifest, he was manifest only to the devotees as a reservoir of pleasure. That's brought up because there is everyone by nature, Anandamaya Vyasat, their pleasure seeking by nature. And only the devotees can find true pleasure that they're searching for, because Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure. Krishna is the source of all pleasure. And Prabhupada was given an example today, just like, and it was when he says mirage, he has like real accent, and it was like 1966. So it's like when he hadn't been in America very long, and the mirage was almost kind of like, which almost makes it what it is. A mirage is like, it almost looks like water on a mirror. It looks like a mirror, or a mountain on the mirror, or something like that. And so we'll see something for what it's not. And so we search out pleasure by gaining material objects or gaining material success or this, whatever it may be. And we think that that's going to give us pleasure, but that's not the source of pleasure. Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure. But to others, Prabhupada says here, unintelligent non-devotees, they're covered by his internal potency. So this internal potency is Yoga Maya. And Yoga Maya arranges in the material world, Yoga Maya, the internal potency of the Lord actually arranges so that Krishna can perform all of his different activities. And it also doesn't allow anyone that's not on the caste list, not like caste as far as like, labor like that, but who on the playlist, who's the actor, who's allowed to act in in this particular pastime of Krishna, if you're not on there, you don't get in. And so that's why it only by Krishna's internal potency, won't allow this, allows that, won't allow this, and allows that. So it works like that. Does that help?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
You
Brother, we had, yeah.
It's not Brajamami, but sometimes the questions match and it's the same. I'm not sure.
Well, it kind of ties in because I read the Krishna book and I see Krishna's Leelas. And so I often wonder, and it kind of ties in with this sentence of only the pure devotees can actually see him. And I often wonder, is this one of the reasons that some cannot see him as the Supreme Personality in those Leelas? Like when he kills Putana, or when, he leaves Govardhan Hill. A lot of the Rajavasis, they run to him, oh, that poor baby, are you okay? Are you not hurt? Could you clarify for me, are they doing those Leelas with him because they are pure devotees, but they still, he covers that they can only see him as that innocent baby?
Yes. Yes. See, there's Mahamaya, which is the external energy, which is an aspect of Yoga Maya in the material world. And so we're bewildered by the material energy. And so in order for the caste to, the performers, the actors to perform properly, they can't understand it because their devotion is so great that they do Yoga Maya. They forget that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Oh,
And then that's also enacted. In other words, like if they knew that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mother Yashoda thought that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he broke a yogurt pot and was a naughty boy, she certainly wouldn't go chasing him around the yard with a stick thinking they were going to beat the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That would probably be, that's there for those who have Krishna in a relationship of servitude, or a lower level of relationship, like say awe and reverence. You come to the next level and it's servitude and or friendship. So if I, and some kind of have a glimpse, and some there are glimpses, but then just like Mother Yashoda, we know the story when Krishna. Of course, Krishna claimed that he defeated all the cowherd boys and they're lying. They told Mother Yashoda that Krishna had eaten dirt. And so Mother Yashoda is thinking, why, you don't get enough prasadam at my house? Or what it was. And he said, no. He said, they're lying. I never ate dirt. I wouldn't do it. And if you don't believe me, just look inside my mouth. And so Mother Yashoda looked inside Krishna's mouth, and inside the mouth, she saw the whole cosmic manifestation. She saw herself looking inside Krishna's mouth during, she saw everything. And it was like, it was almost, what do they call that? Vertigo. It was like kind of like a case of vertigo, where Mother Yashoda is like spinning around and trying to figure it all out. And then all of a sudden, this is my little boy. He's just my little child. He's not being naughty. He's okay. And so it works like that. It's a spiritual covering that allows everyone to participate like that. All the Rajavasis. Indira Devi Dasi, your hand up, or is that?
Yes, Maharaj, thank you. So I understand the Yoga Maya reference, but like Dhritarashtra and that whole group, right, that are against the Pandavas. So they're not covered by Yoga Maya, but they are, Krishna puts them there so that he can have this drama or this.
That's all under that's not under the influence of Mahamaya, that's under the influence of Yoga Maya. As far as I know, then Teshwar can shake his head yes or no, because they play a role. They have a role to play there. And Krishna even went there and manifested a partial universal form to them at one point, to the Kauravas. Because at one point they thought, we'll just capture Krishna. we'll just arrest, the Kauravas were so, they were such bad guys. They thought, okay, we'll get Krishna. And Krishna revealed what, like 11th chapter, we have that universal form. And it said this universal form has never been seen before. So some people wonder, well, didn't they show it to the Kauravas when Krishna went to visit them? And it's described that it was just a little teeny glimpse of what the universal form was. And so they just thought Krishna was just like some kind of mystic, had some mystic powers, or had some, maybe some people thought he was like a demigod. Some people thought that, okay, maybe he's Vishnu or some kind of minor incarnation of Vishnu. And so all this stuff goes on back and forth. But in the Krishna Leela, in this world, it's covered. We're all covered by this Mahamaya, this illusion that this is who I am, and we forget. Again, I think I mentioned this to the group before. The Prabhupada says we have, just like we have our body, and we have a subtle body. So the body is like the shirt, and the subtle body is like the jacket. And so the shirt and jacket are covering our body. And so in the same way, our gross body and our subtle body are covering our spiritual body, which resides within our heart. We actually have a spiritual body residing within us. It has an eternal relationship with Krishna. But because we're covered by the material energy, the three modes of material nature, we have we don't see that. That's our eyes are covered from that. Therefore, we have that prayer, Om Again Tamadam Disha Janan Jana Shalakai Chakshu Umanitam Jana, that we offer our obeisances to the spiritual master who's opening our eyes with the torch of knowledge. In other words, Jnana Chakshus. In other words, the seeing things through the eyes of Shastra will allow us to act in such a way in this world that we're gaining enough, what would you say, I don't want to say spiritual credits, but we're moving up the spiritual social ladder, so to speak. Maybe it's probably an improper way to say it, but we're getting closer and closer to being able to participate with Krishna in Krishna's eternal pastimes. But it just takes a while. Some other feedback, questions, takeaways? And we'll go to our next reader, who is usually Rajabhumi.
In the prayers of Kunti in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.819, it is said that the Lord is covered by the curtain of Yoga Maya, and those ordinary people cannot understand him. This Yoga Maya curtain is also confirmed in the Ishopanishad mantra 15, in which the devotee prays, "O my Lord, you are the maintainer of the entire universe, and devotional service to you is the highest religious principle. Therefore, I pray that you will also maintain me. Your transcendental form is covered by the Yoga Maya. The Brahma Yoti is the covering of the internal potency. May you kindly remove this glowing effulgence that impedes my seeing. Your Satchiananda Brigaha, your eternal form of bliss and knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead in his transcendental form of bliss and knowledge is covered by the internal potency of Brahma Yoti, and the less intelligent impersonalists cannot see the Supreme on this account."
So some takeaways or reflections?
Would you Yoga Maya versus the Brahma Yoti? Could you clarify the difference?
Well, yeah. In other words, and this verse comes from it's covered by the Yoga Maya, or the Brahma Jyoti is covering the internal, is the covering of the internal potency. So Yoga Maya is the internal potency, and he utilizes the Brahma Jyoti, which is just composed of unlimited living entities in that, in that impersonal relationship with Krishna, and they form a glare. So it's a covering. So this is a prayer by the Upanishads that's just asking, just remove that effulgence, just remove that effulgence so I can see you in your Satchidananda, eternal, full of knowledge, full of happiness, and your spiritual form. And when we say Yogamaya, Yogamaya also includes Mahamaya, because Mahamaya comes from Yogamaya. It's an expansion of Yogamaya. It's a very, very technical thing when you know, that's given in the scriptures in different places. And sometimes we use words, how would you say, let's use them? I don't know what's we'll use one word and we'll use another word for meaning this, for using the same, for the same aspect. So the Brahmajyoti or the Yogamaya is the covering. So saying that Brahmajyoti or Yogamaya, there's a distinction, but that distinction is simply how it's being utilized. In other words, what's being utilized to make that covering. Does that help, Ananteshwar? Did I say it? I think I said it right. You know, it's just like, but it's like it's a lot of wordage, especially when you get into the Upanishad. There's so much wordage in the Upanishads because it's meant for like the intellectual crowd that really likes to get deeply into details and stuff. I don't remember where I was at the other day, and somebody asked me like a really detailed question. And I said, I'm the guy that paints the sky on the painting, and somebody else comes in and paints all the details in. I'm really good at painting the sky. I can get it nice and blue, even different shades of blue sometimes. But if I have to start, drawing the little insects and the little twigs and the flowers on the artistic presentation, you know, it's there. I've read it. It's not one of the things that sticks. You know, these little details don't stick. Some people it sticks and they can just, you know, let it go on and on. But that's the understanding. That's the understanding that the Brahmajyoti is the Yogamaya, and the Yogamaya utilizes that Brahmajyoti, and that Brahmajyoti is just an effulgence. It's just like everyone has an aura. We have an aura. So Krishna's quote unquote aura is the Brahmajyoti, which is composed of unlimited living entities in their impersonal, covering. And that is being, the Upanishads asked to remove that, because beyond that glare is something extraordinary. And in the Upanishads, see, the Upanishads are they come after the Karma Kanda. The Upanishads come in. So what they're doing is now saying that there's something, first of all, there's something beyond just material enjoyment. Now there's some kind of transcendental understanding. And behind that transcendental understanding is the real thing. In other words, the real person and the real source of what we're really looking for is behind that veil. Okay, let's open the curtain. Let's let that curtain open up and see what we're really allowed to enter into here. And then that is called Satchidananda Vigraha, eternal, full of knowledge, full of happiness, and has an eternal form, Vigraha. That eternal form is, it's like the last thing that people, they'll get to the point of Sat Chit. That's the first two. Through the impersonal, but the Anand, very difficult. That personal relationship with Krishna, you get it when you get close to Paramatma. I was just reading that in the third canto. And there's some there in the beginning, because it has to be there in order for us to move forward. But the personal relationship with Krishna actually starts with Paramatma realization, and then that Paramatma realization expands into understanding that Krishna actually has a true, a personal form, not just an expanded form, which is the same in every living entity, but it has a personal form that has a personal relationship with each and every living entity in a particular, what's called rasa or mellow or relationship. And I think on my WhatsApp message today, I said I only pray for I always say, I say all these different things about chanting Hare Krishna, and then basically I'm just learning what it's like, and what what's the result of chanting Hare Krishna, and then always pray to get the result that's offered in the scripture for chanting Hare Krishna. If we can actually get the results that are there, we'd be very, very, very fortunate, in the same way as being described here. Does that help? Some more takeaways, feedback, reflections? Anything else from this one?
Maharaj, so when the people see the Brahma Jyoti, is that what people who are leaving their body and sometimes come back, is that the light that they see?
Well, that's a good philosophical, speculative, you know what I mean? I would probably say, yeah, they could see the white light, I mean, I've never had a near-death experience. What do they call it? NDE, near-death experience. But when they see the light, yeah, I would say I would agree with that, in a liberal sense, in a technical sense. I'd like to see what's creating that light. And I don't know anybody that's got past the light that's, talked about it yet. They see the light, so. Yeah.
Maharaj, I have a question. Hi.
Sure, Brent.
I have a question that's very closely related, and I was wondering whether or not to ask it. So, I work in a nursing home, and from time to time, we have folks that are on hospice that don't have family. And so invariably, I will stay with that person if I can and chant under my breath, or put Prabhupada on YouTube and let them listen, always waiting for a nurse to walk in and ask me what I'm doing. So, you can't exactly lock the door, right? So, I mean, when the person is not conscious at the end of the day, I mean, it's one thing, and I think it was chapter 8 of verse 5, where it says that, upon a person's death, they utter the word Krishna, which, there's no difference between the name and the, and Krishna himself. So then it's one thing. But when a person is unconscious, non-communicative, non-responsive, how does that work?
Yeah. So I don't. Okay, I'll say a lot of things, because I always say I don't say enough. I mean, I say too much. But say someone's in a coma. See, they're comatose. So if Prabhupada has said in the past, and I can't quote you where this is from, but I know I've heard it on a lecture or a walk or something, where when someone's in a coma, it's described that there's the computer hasn't fully calculated what this person's destination is yet. And so they're in it. It's kind of like waiting for the calculation to come out to see if they, if they have enough spiritual credit to pay for the material activities that they perform, and what type of body they're going to get in their next life. So they're in limbo. They're in limbo, and it's being decided. In the case of the devotee, or someone who's devoted to the Lord, and it's not just Hare Krishna. It can be anyone, and it can be, my guess, if someone's sinful, it will be the servants of the agents of death, which are known as Yamadutas. Yama meaning regulation, and Duta meaning the servant of the regulator. So Yamaraj is the king of regulators. And one of the analogies we've given like a million times, if we don't voluntarily regulate our lives according to scriptural injunctions in this lifetime, then Yamaraj, who is the Raja means king and Yama means regulator, so the king of regulators will facilitate us with the type of body that is automatically regulated by nature. There's a lower form of life that reproduces and eats and sleeps and defends according to a particular species nature. Because the human form of life is a gift whereby we have the opportunity to advance. And if we don't use that, we lose it. And so in those cases, it's being under the care of the agents of death. And otherwise, it's being under the care of the servants of God. And where that what that destiny will be, I just heard this before that it's under discussion, and we have that in the Bhagavatam. We have that with Ajamil. In the case of Tamal Krishna, did a whole series on the Ajamil story one time, and Ajamil, just for those who don't know, Ajamil was born in a Brahmin family, a priestly family, and as a young boy, he used to help his father gather ingredients for doing the worship and bathing the deities, and gathering foodstuffs to cook and stuff like that. And as he got a little older, he happened to come across a low-class man. What did Prabhupada say today? Oh, I was reading the third canto. I'll think of the word in a second. It was like disgusting or despicable men who hunt women. And so it was like he came across a prostitute being embraced by a low-class man. And somehow or another, there was a seed of desire in his heart. He became attracted to the prostitute. And so eventually he left his wife and family and everything to live with that prostitute, and begot children with her. And in order to maintain her, he had to become a thief. All kinds, he really fell. He really fell from his position. And when he was in his aged position, he had a child, like when he was 80 years old, and he named him Narayan. And when the agents of death, these Yamadutas that are really, if you look at our sixth canto of the Bhagavatam, you got the picture of these guys. They're really gnarly looking creatures. You certainly wouldn't want to meet them in a dark alley. And they're coming for Ajamil. He's leaving his body, and these agents of death are coming, and they're scaring the heck out of him. So he yells out, Narayan, 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 calling out for his son. But because he's crying out the name of God, Narayan, and he's not making any offense in the sense that there's different offenses to the holy name, and he's not committing any of those offenses. So that even though the chanting was, what's the word, not intended for Narayan, it was intended for his son, he got the credit as if it was being chanted for Lord Narayan. And so here you have these gnarly looking guys, and all of a sudden these saintly four-armed Vishnu Dutas, the servant, Duta means servant, just like Prabhupada came on the Jala Duta. So Jala means water and Duta means servant. So the boat was the servant of the water that Prabhupada came on. And so all of a sudden these Vishnu Dutas are there, and they say, stop. And the Yamadutas had never been stopped from taking a sinful person in their life. And so they have this long discussion. The Yamaduta said, this guy is so sinful. We're going to have to get a huge calculator to figure this one out, because he was so bad. I may have to invent a new species or something. I mean, I'm exaggerating. What we say, like writer's embellishment here. And then the Vishnu Duta said that anyone who utters the name of Krishna or Narayan, even one time, knowingly or unknowingly, is relieved from so many sinful acts that they can't perform enough sinful acts in one lifetime that the chanting of one name of God won't counteract. Therefore, one of the offenses to the holy name is to commit sins on the strength of chanting Hare Krishna. In other words, you go out and you murder somebody, you rob a bank, you do all these crazy things, and you go Hare Krishna, now I'm free, now I'm okay. And you do it again, and then you Hare Krishna, now I'm okay. So that's committing sins in the strength of chanting Hare Krishna. But Ajamil didn't do that. he just on the ride. And so he was protected. And the story ends very well. Ajamil got a second chance. We have a book, Second Chance. And he had a little epiphany. That's how you say the word epiphany. He had like a moment of clarity, and he realized that he had made a big boo-boo by chasing this prostitute, and he just dove back into his spiritual practices. And when he left his body, he attained a great result. And so now I'm trying to remember where this started from. I don't even remember who asked the question.
Ben.
Oh, Bren, yeah. So during that conversation, Ajahn is just laying there, right? He's just watching the conversation going on. And so when people are in a coma, there's a discussion going on where this person is going to be. And I think, my understanding, I'm sure you must know this also, Ben, if you're working in that industry, that the last thing that goes is hearing.
That is true.
Yeah, the last thing that goes is hearing. That's why I always tell people when they come into a room of a person that's about to pass away, keep the vibes good, don't start talking, what are you gonna do with the land? Who gets the barn? Who gets the tractor? Who gets the Toyota pickup? We don't start talking like that because even though the person seems to be unaware of what we're doing, they're fully aware of what's going on, or apparently aware. And so that would be my answer, Brent, on one level. And another level is just Krishna may be giving them a moment to reflect their life. Because we can also do devotion, we can also make amends mentally. I make amends mentally all the time for, what would you say, sinful, I guess anything not connected to Krishna is sinful. So any inauspicious thought or activity that I may perform, I'm always praying to Krishna, like even mentally. I say, I know I shouldn't do this, please help me and stuff like that. And so at this time, or that moment of silence for them, can be a time of mental atonement. I'm just speculating on that, but that's a good possibility, because when you get that close to the edge, and you're just not like on the edge of the river, just ready to go. A lot of things flash. And they say your whole life flashes before you within a moment. And so Krishna may be giving them time to amend for their activities. Nice thought anyway.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Some other thoughts or takeaways? We have one paragraph left to read. Maybe we can make it. So our other school teacher, usually picking our school teachers, is your voice okay today, Sri Rupa?
Yes, Maharaj, thank you.
Okay.
Also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is this prayer by Brahma. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, O Super Soul, O Master of all mystery, who can calculate your potency and pastimes in this world? You are always expanding your internal potency, and therefore no one can understand you. Learned scientists and learned scholars can examine the atomic constitution of the material world or even the planets, but still they are unable to calculate your energy and potency, although you are present before them. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, is not only unborn, but also avaya, inexhaustible. His external form is bliss and knowledge, and his energies are all inexhaustible.
Just hearing these things makes you want to be with Krishna, doesn't it? I mean, for me, just to understand, one of the translations to this verse is that that someone may be able to count all the atoms in the universe, but no one can ever count all the activities or attributes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just imagine counting all the atoms in the universe. And Krishna's qualities and activities and pastimes go way, way, way beyond anything like that. Any thoughts or reflections?
Well, I agree
No,
with
the only
what you
thing
say, Maharaj.
Oh, okay. Ladies first.
No, I was just saying that I agree what you say, because as Sri Rupa Mataji was reading, I was thinking what it will be like to actually see Krishna, and if Krishna looks exactly like what we see in the pictures, or a million times more beautiful than his deity form. I was just imagining that as she was reading that, because I was thinking, wow, what it will be like to actually see him. Is his spiritual form like the drawings that we see in the Bhagavad Gita? Or
There's one picture where Prabhupada said, this is what Krishna looks like. And it's really like a dark gray monsoon cloud. The color is not even blue like some of the pictures in the Krishna book. It's actually like a real dark monsoon cloud. And I don't have, I couldn't locate the picture that quick right now. There's one picture Prabhupada said, yes. And he was in Hawaii one time and he saw an island. And he said, that's the size of a Timangilla. It's called Rabbit Island. I don't know if anybody's been to Hawaii, but there's one island there. And Prabhupada said, this is the size of the Timangilla fish, those big fish in the ocean that eat whales as snacks that we've never seen. No one's ever caught one on. So yeah, and beyond that, Vrajabhumi, is that Krishna will be even more beautiful than we think, and then he'll become even more beautiful than we saw him. And then the next moment he'll be even more beautiful, and the next moment more beautiful, and the next moment more beautiful. And then Radharani will see him and she'll become more beautiful, and then he'll become more beautiful, and she'll become more beautiful, and the cowherd boys become more, and everybody becomes more beautiful. And whereas in this world, I won't even say it. We just deteriorate. There were that. What is it? Ever useful? Yovana. What's Navi Yovana? Ever? How do you say that?
Yeah.
Navi Yovana. Ever youthful. Ever youthful.
Yeah. There's a. I remember a pastime where Krishna is walking in Vrindavan and sees a flower, and the flower looks at Krishna. Seeing Krishna, the flower smiles, and seeing the flower, Krishna smiles, and seeing that the flower smiles more, and this goes on continuously without end. So
Everything's personal in the spiritual world, everything's, everything is conscious of Krishna. I mean, for us living in this dull matter, it's very like, dreamlike to imagine, but that's what it's like, very, very much like that. Bren, you had a takeaway?
Yeah, actually, I guess two things quickly. Number one is Haridas Thakur chanting 300 Lord's name 300,000 times in a day is unbelievable. I mean, that's just phenomenal. And the other thing is the mercy of Lord in terms of Tukaram's wife who lands up with a thorn in her foot and Krishna helps her. The mercy is just absolutely phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah. Prabhupada was just saying that. Was it Valmiki was meditating and was it Menaka? I think Menaka. Yeah. Who came?
it was Vishwamitra was meditating. Then Menka came.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So Vishwamuni is meditating. He's doing this some kind of yogic meditation, and it's demigods get a little jealous sometimes, so they'll send down some apsaras to agitate their meditation. And so Menaka come down, and he had his eyes closed, but they heard the bangles dingle, and he thought, or is it dingle or chingle, whatever the word is, changed, and then he opened his eyes and he saw Menaka, and he fell down. He not fell. I guess he got married. Make it positive. And but then we have the case of Haridas Thakur that Bren reminded me of this. Haridas Thakur was chanting 300,000 names of God a day, and he was so absorbed in love of Krishna that on two incidents. One incident, there was a Mohammedan ruler of a village that became jealous of Haridas Thakur because he was gaining so much popularity, because he was such a saint. People were going to him all the time. And so he went to the local brothel and said, I need to get this person to break his vows. And so the top prostitute or whatever, I don't know how you rate them, but anyway, she said, I can break him within so many days. And so she went there, and Haridas Thakur said, surely I'll enjoy with you. I must finish my quota of chanting 300,000. Well, he makes a monthly quota. I think it's 10 billion, 300,000. So it'd be 3 billion and 10. So yeah, like 10 billion names. I got a monthly chance. So he said, but I got to reach my quota first. So just sit here. So the first night she sat there and just listened. The second night she sat there and ended up starting chanting. And the third night she reveals to Haridas, actually I was sent here by this envious mother to make you break. He said, yeah, I know, because pure Vaishnava actually has knowledge of the things that are going on, around him. And he said, I just wanted to save you from your material, existence. And she said, what should he do? And he said, you should go and give all your belongings to the Brahmins, and you should come back here, and you should sit here at the spot and with Tulsi, and you should just chant the holy name. So she gave everything away. She shaved her head, and she sat there, and she began chanting the holy names all day, day and night. Day and night, she began chanting the holy name. And then another time, Maya Devi personified came to which is, I don't want, if the word is challenge or to interrupt Haridas Thakur, and even Maya Devi, who is the personification of the illusory energy, couldn't break Haridas Thakur's, commitment to the holy name. And so very powerful, that chanting of the holy name. And we should all aspire. I think about this, and it's very difficult to control the mind. But we should aspire, we should pray to be able to control the mind and to, get them. I'm setting this little part now, aligning the body, mind, and heart together, so that we can combine that facility that we've been given. We've been given this for physical body. We've been given this subtle mind, and we've been given this heart, which we reside and the Lord resides, and we can connect those together so that we can manifest our true spiritual nature. And prayer is a very important part of it. I mean, it's a huge important part of it. Living a life of prayer. Vaishnavas live a life of prayer, because it's sometimes. I know for myself, I know I'm talking about myself a lot, but I find myself chanting Hare Krishna not as a prayer, but as a duty. Chanting Hare Krishna as, I don't want to say obligation, because I have made an obligation, but the prayerfulness that can be involved in the chanting of Hare Krishna, if we become present in the moment. Just like today, I think I was talking about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, whose appearance day is Saturday, I believe. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master's father, who was in our disciplic succession. And he prayed to have a son that would help spread the movement. And Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master was that son. And so the prayer is just, don't worry about the past that's asleep. In other words, whatever has happened in the past, let it rest. Just let it rest. And in the future, don't dream so much. I mean, it's not that we don't make concessions, we don't make some type of arrangements for our existence, but we don't make that the focus. The focus is because bhakti becomes present in the moment that we're chanting, the moment that we're praying, the moment that we're serving. That's when bhakti becomes present. Bhakti becomes present at that moment, and we want to be present for the bhakti's present. Bhakti presenting herself. I'm using present twice. I end up using words twice. And so we want to be alert and ready for when bhakti actually manifests within our heart, so that we can water that kripa. That kripa means the plant of devotional service, that plant of bhakti, bhakti lata kripa, that we want to be able to be ready and in tune, so that when the moment happens, we're ready to water that seed so that it can be nourished. And the watering of that seed is done through the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. And the I guess we could say the fertilizer for the water is the depth of our prayer. It's the depth of our inner emotion, our inner spiritual emotion that we can manifest. Each and every one of us has a certain ability to do that. And it's something that we can work on a daily basis. And it shouldn't be, one of the, we don't want to just be caught up in, in chanting just for the sake of chanting. We want to chant to please Krishna and to show Krishna that somehow or another I've accepted you as my Lord. Ashlisha svapada korotu va. Whether you handle me roughly by your embrace, or whether you leave me alone and brokenhearted, you will still always remain my Lord unconditionally. And this can come from deep, what would you say, attentive and intentive, like chanting with an intention to arouse bhakti, and with attention, so that we can be present as we are uttering the holy names of the Lord, or even as we're reading the verses and purports of the Bhagavad Gita. It can be academic or it can be devotional. We can wash the pots, as in a what would you say, material mindset, or we can wash the pots in a mindset of devotional service. It's just a matter of adjusting. And that was Prabhupada's point in the beginning. You don't have to change anything, just add Krishna. You don't really need to add, change anything, any of our basic daily duties, but we just need to add Krishna. But today's lecture was in New York, 1966, during my lunch, and Prabhupada says, you have to eat. Everyone has to eat. So just cook for Krishna. And then if you have to cook, then you have to buy something. So you go buying it. You go buy the fruits and vegetables for Krishna, and you have to work to earn the money to buy this. So you go to work for Krishna. And probably just taking it down to the point where our whole lives can be immersed in a devotional sediment. Sediment, is that a good word? A devotional connection. I don't want to make it sentimental. I want to make it spiritually concrete, and where we actually have a heart connection with each and every activity that we do, so that we're always advancing in Krishna consciousness. We're always advancing, and that just takes a little effort. And the effort is one, and the mercy is the other is the other one. We're getting close. We're getting close to that special month of Damodar where Yashoda's putting out the effort and Krishna gives her the mercy so that she can tie him up. So that was a little bit on Haridas Thakur, the chanting of Hare Krishna. And it's actually 9:30. See how Krishna arranged it.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you,
That
Maharaj.
So beautiful, Maharaj. That was, I loved that whole, when you started to speak about how you have to let the past sit in the past and don't dream, that was so beautiful. And it really, especially coming off of Radhastami yesterday and just being with the devotees and celebrating and praying to Radharani, it's just so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. We want to make Krishna real. And if it's just like if there's other stuff in the heart, then Krishna's not, he's not, we have to clean it up. We have to get it nice and ready. And that's the key. If we can get it really ready, get it squeaky clean through this process. And this process works if we just let it. Just let it do its thing. Next week is
Maharaj?
okay. Yes, Brent, please.
Very quickly, if we look at Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the Diksha Guru for Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was the Diksha Guru for Bhaktivedanta Saraswati, who was the Diksha Guru for Sri Prabhupada, who was your Diksha Guru, right?
Prabhupada, yes, was my Diksha Guru, but I think you're missing one. You've got one little thing off. I'm going to get to the Lord Chaitanya Haridas. It doesn't go that direction. It goes from when we get down to that level. Madhavendra Puri was Lord Chaitanya's guru's guru, and Lord Chaitanya was the six Goswamis' gurus, and Krishna Das. Then it was Krishna Das from Raghunath and Jiva, and Krishna Das was Narottam and Vishwanath, and then Jagannath Das Babaji, who was very elderly. He was the one that actually identified the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was invalid and they took him in a basket. He couldn't walk. He was like hunched over. He couldn't walk, and they took him to the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya because Bhaktivinoda Thakur was looking for it. And there was this big, huge overgrowth of tulsi in this one place. And some villagers would say, this is the spot. And when Jagannath Das Babaji saw that spot, he jumped out of his basket and started dancing like Lord Chaitanya in that spot. And he's Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Shiksha Guru, and Gorakishore Das Babaji is related to them through Shiksha. And Gorakishore Das Babaji became Bhaktivinoda Thakur's son, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Diksha Guru. So Diksha means initiating Guru, and Shiksha means instructing. You have one Diksha Guru, and you can have an unlimited number of Shiksha Gurus. It's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's a whole section there. So Haridas Thakur falls in that area of the Goswamis. They were all associates, and but it's like I think we can sum it up like that because we're already at 9:34 and then Teshwar.
Thank you. Sorry for delaying.
Yeah. So that's how it works. That's how it works.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for attending. We have such a steady group on Tuesdays. It's very enlivening. Very, very comforting to have such wonderful association. Association is the key to building faith. And if the more faith we have, the closer we get to Krishna. So hopefully by Krishna's grace, we'll see you all next Tuesday.
Yes,
And
Maharaj.
Thank
please be
you. Good
blessed.
to you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Maharaj.
Thank
you.
you.